So this is just gonna be a normal YouTube video. I'm gonna try to my best to explain my background and why I follow the political movement that I do, why I'm a Hassan fan, and why I believe in the things that I believe. First of all, let's address exactly what I believe. What I believe is the emancipation and the marginalized and essentially everybody living equally and taxing the ultra wealthy in order to redistribute that wealth so everybody can live a modest life. Of course, no, not everybody's can be able to be a millionaire, but everybody would be able to make a living and live with food on the table, a roof over their head, and not having to stress about things that humans shouldn't stress about. I'm essentially if I were to commit to one singular thing, which isn't how politics works, but if I were to commit to one thing, it would be communism. Why is that? Well, I believe in the redistribution of wealth and that going back to the proletariat, which is the working class, which is what I'm part of, what you're probably part of if you're somehow seeing this video, and the majority of people. The majority of people deserve better than what they have now because right now they're ruled by the bourgeois class, the Epstein class, the Donald Trumps, the Elon Musks, the other billionaires that I can't ever remember the names of because there's too many and they're always in the news. But they control our lives, whether we want them to or not, and we deserve control over our own life. But I'm not a hardline communist. And I don't even describe myself as a communist. I wouldn't deny it if someone was like, "Oh, you're a communist." The only thing I would deny is probably being an anarchist and being a liberal because I'm not a liberal. Calling me a conservative is just dumb. But I'm not a liberal. Liberalism is not left wing, no matter how much American media tries to make it left wing here in America. But I prefer identifying as a socialist because social democracy and socialism is capable of being achieved within my lifetime. Like, I could see a very strong socially democratic US government and eventually a small at least the beginning into a transitional state of socialism in America. Now, realistically, that's not going to happen anytime soon with the way things are because everybody's so brainwashed and believe they either believe that it's the Jews instead of the billionaires or think things are fine how they are, which they're not. But that's how I portray myself. I prefer identifying as a socialist. I'm far from being against communism. I'm skeptical of social democracy, but I strongly believe in the fact that that's a stepping point towards socialism and communism. We just can't stop there. We can't stop at social democracy like a lot of European countries have done. But how did I get here? Well, if we were to go back to, let's say, I think it was probably 2021. I wasn't I was in high school in 2021. 2022 is probably a more accurate time frame. I'm 20 right now. I turned 21 in a couple months. I think exactly, no, 3 months from now. And in 2021 or 2022, I can't remember, but around that time is whenever Andrew Tate was popping off. And Andrew Tate held not invalid, but very propagandized family values, which it can't exist under a socialist or communist society. Honestly, I think it's probably like the majority of what people would be doing within those societies. But within those societies, it would be a choice rather than being forced on you. Anyway, because of his messaging like that and his messaging about how young men should work out, and I eventually started working out. I got into calisthenics, which I much prefer over weight training because you can do that at home. It's free, and I hold the opinion that it's a little bit more skillful. I need to work out again. I'm a very weak socialist right now, but that's just because I'm so overworked and I don't have the time. But if this takes off, which I hope it does, I will use it to sustain myself, and then I will donate it back, and then I'll use the allotted time I'm allowed to study the shit out of politics, learn a lot, maybe go to college, which would be incredible, and also get stronger, hopefully. But that's very big wishes. That's asking a lot. I would need a lot of support. I would need a lot of attention on me, which very difficult, especially since everybody's so busy. This isn't 2020 where we're locked up and people have free time to watch me stream or post these YouTube videos. But anyway, back in 2022 or 2021, it doesn't matter which year, it was around that time, I was a tater tot. I saw the Andrew Tate clips, and I thought he had a point. I thought he was kind of correct, which in some aspects, he made points that weren't entirely invalid. It's more about the actions he took, being a sex pest, being a sexual assaulter, being a sexual abuser, that I glossed over and was willfully unaware of because I never took the step to dive into his background. All I heard was the good things about, oh, you need to work out, you need to be a strong man, you need to be the head of the household, you need to be a good father figure. I heard all that and only took that rather than going a layer deeper. And I was kind of like that for quite a while. I wasn't fully right wing, but I never committed to it. I never learned more. But whenever the elections in 2024 came around, I think if I remember correctly, I had misogynistic views of Kamala Harris. Now I don't. I would prefer a woman president, honestly, just to see if that would have any difference. Just as long as she's a socialist, AOC, instead of what Kamala is, which is a neocon, fascist collaborator, which is not what I want. I don't want her. Please stop being Diet MAGA. It's not gonna work. Anyway, that's whenever I started getting into it a little bit, but that's not actually true. I started getting into politics through music. So for all my life, I was a massive hip hop fan. I grew up on country and I liked it, but it was never something that got me excited. It's never something that I would commit time to listen to, but I would always enjoy listening to it. Now I don't enjoy listening to it because it all sounds the same and I understand the poor quality. I'll still vibe to it because I'm white as hell. But that doesn't mean it's good. But I started having the thought process at some point of thinking I really need and I really want to really get into hip hop. I really want to get into rap. I really want to learn more about this culture because I appreciate it a lot. I thought it was really cool. And slowly but surely, I came across Kendrick Lamar. And I don't remember the first album I enjoyed from him the most, but Anthony Fantano gave To Pimp a Butterfly a 10 out of 10. So I listened to it. I listened to Good Kid, Mad City. I listened to Mr. Morale. I listened to all the other albums at that up to that point. This was 2 years before GNX came out, and this was literally a year before the Kendrick and Drake beef. So whenever I learned all the stuff about Kendrick, I was eating good. I was eating good during that time. It was so great. I had so much fun during that time with my hobby. But to get to that point, I had to listen to Pimp a Butterfly. And Good Kid, Mad City was much more digestible. It was much easier to understand. It had more hits that played on the radio. Same with Damn. Not the same with Mr. Morale, but Mr. Morale was more listenable, but I don't know if I listened to Mr. Morale at that point. I think I did. I think I listened to Mr. Morale and then T-Pab. But with To Pimp a Butterfly, I could never understand it. I was so abrasive when I listened to it. It didn't sound good to me. I never listened to it and really heard it. Like I was listening, but I wasn't hearing it until a wonderful podcast came across my timeline at some point, and I was like, I need to listen to this because their first season was about this, about T-Pab. Their very first season was To Pimp a Butterfly. So, if you follow me real quick, who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about... Oh, I'm forgetting. Sorry. No, it's not Digest. Man, I'm really fumbling. I've been on a roll with this. T-Pab. I'm very... Dissect. So, Dissect podcast. I came across Dissect at some point, and they have, I'm not sure how many episodes, but their very first season, the entire point of Dissect with its beginning was... Well, that's not true. Wait. 23 episodes. So the entire beginning point of Dissect was to go into To Pimp a Butterfly, and I strongly recommend listening to this if you want to listen to T-Pab, but you have the same issue as me, where it's difficult to understand. It's not... For me, it became much more listenable whenever I learned it. But there's 23 episodes going over the entire track list of every song, explaining every meaning. And because of that, that made me understand the album a lot more. I learned more, I understood the point of T-Pab, and I enjoyed it a lot more. And that made me realize, and through that process, not only did I listen to great music, I heard what Black liberation was ideally looked up to, or what through T-Pab I witnessed Black suffering in America under capitalism. I just didn't know it was capitalism just yet. But that gave me a lot of empathy for the African American community here in America, which not only I gained much more respect over because I learned about the culture, about how things worked, I gained a lot of empathy, and I felt a lot of white guilt. I feel a lot of white guilt still, but at this point, I'm trying to utilize it more broadly, not just to one marginalized group, but the entire marginalization of America. And once that's addressed, I want to focus on the marginalization of the African American community, which I think I might, if I remember, I'll come back to later. But this made me go on a journey of wanting to learn more about more Black history and more African American culture, which led me to FD Signifier, which is a phenomenal, not breadwinner, bread tuber. He's a bread tuber, but he's also essayist. He's an essay YouTuber. If you've never seen him, I highly recommend checking him out. He's great. He's fantastic. His politics are good. He's great. He's the reason why I'm so pro. Him and Kendrick are why I'm so pro-Black. Like, I'm insanely pro-Black. I just can't focus on that because I recognize that it's not. We need to address everyone, and then we can focus on Black people. Because I can't focus on just one marginalized group. I need to focus on everybody that's marginalized, and then when everybody's fixed, when everybody gets what they need, I can focus on the needs of the Black community, which I'll touch on later again. But, which also the needs of the Black community would get addressed through broadly addressing the marginalization of America. But through FD, I slowly started getting into politics more and more, and I can't remember what else I was doing at the time, but eventually I came across Brian Tyler Cohen, I think his name is, and figures like him, Philip DeFranco, and the Crashing Out podcast. I can't remember the other man's name. But that led me to Hassan Piker. And through Hassan is where I learned about socialism. And because of that, I'm now a Hasanabi head that is vehemently fighting for the proletariat, even though I am the proletariat and I have no power, but I want power. And I want power to represent those that lack it as much as I lack it right now. I don't want power to abuse it. I simply want power to sustain myself, but also help others sustain themselves. Because I understand I can't self-sustain myself properly if everyone can't. And it's also, I also have ADHD, and there's this thing called the justice complex, which a lot of people with ADHD experience. And that's what I have. I think if people are in positions of power that abuse it, I think that's extremely unfair, and it triggers me to no end. And I experienced this as a child because I would play a game and there would be house rules that just makes it feel unfair. Like, for example, if me and my brother were playing with toys, his characters would be always overpowered, and that really peeved me. I loved his story. I loved trials and tribulation. I didn't like overpowered numbnuts having a shit ton of being Superman with no reason. And I had that from an early age, and that just evolved into hating the 1%, which is valid. And now I am where I am now because of that process. I've went from a right-wing douchebag to a left-wing douchebag. I am in my annoying leftist phase where I over-explain my thoughts. I push them a little bit too much on the people that I really want to understand my perspective and agree with me, such as my family members. But that's where I am now, and that's my worldview. That's my perspective. I believe we deserve better things, and I believe that billionaires shouldn't exist. Billionaires should become millionaires. They can continue owning their business. But if they have multi-billionaire businesses such as Amazon, the government should have at least 51% of Amazon owned by them. The rest can be by Jeff Bezos, I guess, whatever. But the government should own the rest and serve the people with that power instead of using the power of the government to continue profiting off those civilians. I think profit is wrong, especially such large profits. I want to bring up something, but I don't want to get fired for saying this online before I make it big somehow, if I ever make it big, because I can talk about it after I'm successful, if I'm ever successful, which I will. But the place I work, they make such a large percentage back in profits that I could be paid $5 more an hour and they would still record over $1 billion in profit, which is enough. Like when you say profit, that means like all employees are paid, even the top guys are paid what their salaries should be, which is very livable. So like them cutting it to $1 billion a year is completely fair instead of, I'm going to keep the number to myself just in case, but it's ridiculous. Oh. What? There's much else I can think of. That's my political journey, and it's funny because before I became a socialist, I was and still am, sadly, a Patriots fan, a New England Patriots fan. One of the most fascist teams in the NFL. I'm not gonna bandwagon. I'm not gonna switch up. I'm just gonna pray that the proletariat takes over. But I redeemed myself by being a Barcelona fan because they're primarily owned. I believe they're primarily owned by their fans, as well as they hold democratic elections every year. And the history is Barcelona, Catalonia, has always been anti-fascist. You can't see this, but I can't. I'm just gonna Google it. Yeah, Barcelona operates as a cooperative, ensuring that the club's direction is influenced by its community rather than private investors. So yeah, Barcelona is probably one of the more socialist, not one of the more socialist clubs, but more socially democratic, much more democratic than like Man City or most English teams. So I redeemed myself there, and I'm a much bigger soccer fan. There's not much else I can think of. I just wanted to make this recording. The same day I've already streamed 4 hours, and I've just started streaming. I just got this mic today. I started using these headphones today. I'm not gonna edit this video. It's just gonna be me yapping. I want to download DaVinci Resolve. I'm gonna stop yapping about my personal shit. But yeah, I thought I should get on here and be honest about my world perspective, because if I ever get blessed with a lot of fans, they should understand where I'm coming from. But don't make the conflation that socialism means no phone. That's personal property. Socialism is no private property, so you can't be a landlord in socialism, but you can have a computer, you can have a phone, you can own luxuries, you can experience luxuries in socialism, but you can't be the luxury, if that makes sense. You can't be Rolex and record billions and billions of profits. You can't be Amazon and exploit child labor and experience billions and billions of profits. That's not how that works under socialism. Socialism is taking down private property, not personal property. If anything, socialism gives you more personal property because it would give you cheap housing. And not bad cheap housing like if we were in a socialist country that was run properly, the apartment I live in would be in better condition. I love my apartment, but like it's not in the best condition. Like, come on. But if anybody's watched this video, if I was lucky enough, if I was fortunate enough in the future to make this a career and succeed with this, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. I hope I'm still alive by that time, because right now things aren't going great mentally, physically, and socially and economically. Yeah, I'm not in a great place, but I'm hoping for better. I believe in better. I believe we deserve better and that we will get better. We just need AOC to fucking run for president. But I'll see you next time. Peace.